King Solomon and Cervantes agree that we make success through diligence. For example, famed educator Booker T. Washington recalled an entrance exam that, as a young man, earned him a place at the Hampton Institute in Virginia. But weird enough, the head teacher only ordered Washington to take a broom and sweep the classroom. But because he knew that this was his chance, he swept the room 3 times and dusted the furniture 4 times. When the teacher came back, she inspected the floor closely and ran her handkerchief over the woodwork. Unable to find a speck of dust anywhere, she said, "I guess you'll do to enter this institution." Washington later said that this was the turning point of his life. He had one task and he did it with all his might. Our bottom line is that whatever our particular task is, let us level our very best efforts against it.
Talofa, and welcome to Tour Talk, or Warrior Conversations, with your hosts, Isaiah Bimoto and Saleh Soleita. This show brings to you live conversations with subject matter experts on various topics, focusing on mentorship, relevancy, up-to-date, and international. Your time is valuable, so let's connect up. Let's conversate.
Well, Talofa, and welcome again.
All right.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to connect with us again today, and we've got a great show for you tonight. But first, let's pause for a little bit of shout out. Isaiah, hey, what's your shout out?
Yeah. Well, I just want to give a shout out to anyone, our viewers who have a birthday today, or this week, or have a anniversary this week. Wish you and your loved one the best and many more years to come. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and wish you nothing but best of health and much love going forward, and many more years to come. I think one of the big thing I saw I think it was yesterday in the news. I believe it was the head of the Mexican CIA or Intel guy. He was he was corrupt. I mean, I guess they um, he was in court yesterday, found guilty. A dude. So that I guess he's supposed to be working for the cartel, but yes, he is the Mexican head of. Was he, you remember something? Is he the head of CIA or head of Intel or something? So he gets in front of the countries. Yeah, we're going to get these guys. We're going to get them. We're going to. But yet he's feeding the cartel all the intel and information. So wow, I mean that's just how low can you go? I mean that's kind of your own country. Anything for money. I guess when you're threatened, I guess you'll do anything just to just survive. You know. Other than that, also give a shout out to all our troops who are in harm's way or who are out there in Europe or close to the fight in Russia and Ukraine, supporting that war. You know, wish them and their family. I mean, wish them the safety and safe return, and also prayers to their families and loved ones who are anxiously waiting for their arrival or their return. So, what about you, Sally? What's on your mind?
Really not much, just other than a lot of what I'm seeing right now through the initiatives of the Army with trying to get after one of their number one priorities, which is recruitment and retention. That still remains a top priority for the Army. And you just, I mean, as a money guy, you could tell with a lot of resources being pushed at it. So we think they're getting after it, and that's just what's on my mind is work. So every time I come home from work, that's kind of
Yeah,
what's on my mind at the time.
yeah,
But yeah, hey, we got a great show, Isaiah.
yeah. I know we're excited, and yeah, we have also. So let's go ahead and get started. So since you mentioned it is going to be a great show. It's going to be a great conversation. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I know I've seen a lot of text from some of the friends. Hey, I saw that you guys are going to be talking about empowerment. That's a good topic. We're gonna tune in. So hopefully they are tuning in. All right, but let's get started then. So years ago, a former Secretary of Defense, William Perry, told a story about General Andrei Nikolaev, Deputy Chief of the Russian General Staff. Um, when Nikolaev was on a 2-week tour of military bases in the United States. After visiting the first base and seeing our non-commissioned officers in action, he told one of his aides, "I know that these men and women wearing sergeant's uniform, they must be really officers in disguise." But as he went from base to base and talked with NCO, Nikolaev came to realize they really were not officers. He was stunned, and after 2 weeks, he told the former Secretary of Defense, Perry, he said, this is his saying, and quote, "No military in the world has the quality of non-commissioned officers found in the United States," close quote. He went on to say, "That's what gives America its competitive military advantage. Our NCOs are one reason we have the best military in the world." Empowerment is our topic for tonight, and we have invited some of our friends for this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lieutenant Colonel retired Wayne Hunt and Command Sergeant Major retired Terry Gardner.
Thanks for having us on.
So you guys can clap for each other as well.
All right.
So active and also a master for the conversation. Due to military duties and support the war fighters, they had to back out. So, and that's respectfully, that they have to do that. So, but again, the topic tonight, I mean, these guys here, our guests, they've been in the military, they've seen all of this, so we value their opinions and their experiences. All right. Yeah, I think you're mute, Sally.
There you go. That helps. Well, Command Sergeant Major retired Terry Gardner is no newbie on the show. He's a constant presence, and we thank him for it. But we're still going to ask him to introduce himself again, and then we'll also continue over to Lieutenant Colonel retired Wayne Hunt, just to talk about yourselves again, where you're from, what your family, where you're from, your family, your hobbies, your likes and dislikes. Please go ahead, team.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Sally. My name is Terry Gardner. I'm retired military. I served 33 plus years active duty. And I retired out of Alaska. And now I'm residing down here in the great Northwest in Washington with the wife. We are fortunate all our kids are grown and they out. So we're empty nesters. We got a bunch of grandkids that come and visit all the time. I enjoy a lot of hunting, fishing, and just, going out and doing a little gym activities. That's where I get the opportunity to see Sergeant Major Vamoto, I think probably 3 times out of the week, and getting at the gym. But hey, I really appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to come back to the show. I really enjoy these discussions. It kind of bring me back to the military, wishing I was back in, but I'm good. I can share my thoughts on this show, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Terry. All right. I think you're mute.
Can you all hear me now? Okay, my microphone was working a second ago. How about now?
We can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, great. All right. Well, my name is Wayne Hunt. As Isaiah said, I retired after about 20, a little over 21 years as in the in the Army. I was infantry officer, originally from Virginia, on the East Coast. There, went to the West Coast and kept going up. Everybody seems to. Almost everybody in this room, I think, has been to Alaska. That's where I currently live. I spent time in the let's see, in the 101st and down in Fort Hood in the 4th ID and 2nd AD, and then came up to Fort Richardson as an advisor to the Guard up here. And then I moved around a bunch in Alaska doing different work. Did some work helping to stand up a unit, missile defense unit, up here at Fort Greely. And after a couple more deployments after that, I decided Alaska was pretty much where I should have been born, and so that's where I decided to retire to. Let's see, I've got a wife of 28 years and 4 children, all adults, all kind of. Let's see, I have one in college, and the other 3 are doing other things. One married, and a couple others that are not quite married yet, but they're all out of the house and working in different places around the state.
All right. Well, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. Again, for our viewers, I can add too. I know both of these men. Terry Garzawad Terry. He and I deployed to Afghanistan together. He was one of brigade sergeant major out of Alaska at the time when I was I was a division sergeant major for First Cav. So we had some great times there. And previous shows when he was on, we talked about some of the things that we did together during deployment. And then, of course, Wayne Hunt. We had a long history. He was my company commander back in the 101st with the First 5 Deuce. Again, we were both young. I was the first sergeant. And he was the company commander. We want the best for our company, and I thought we had the best company in the battalion, regardless of what First Sergeant Reyes would say, at Alpha Company, right, sir? So, but
We
then,
got the
so
statistics to back it up.
there you go. Yeah, statistic. When it comes to PT, it comes to training or metal tasks, Bravo Company was it. I'm granted we got some profiles, but again, we dealt with it. We didn't pawn them off to other people. So we trained, there, and then then we went to Sinai. We deployed to Sinai we had a millennial tour in Sinai. So again, there we had some great, experiences here in Sinai. Got to see our company. We had some overweight, we had some profilers, but I tell you, by the end of that 6 months in Sinai, we didn't have any profiles. We didn't have any overweight in the company. You know, so so we came back. But again, so we had a long history with Wayne. So it's good to see you. Good, it's great to reconnect with him after all these years. And I think we ran into each other in combat again. In Afghanistan. Again, I guess you stay in the army long enough, keep running into the same people. All right. So for the audience, that's kind of short, but really, if you want to know more, we can always talk more. Well, let's kick it off. So our topic today, we're talking about empowerment, all right? But I want to paint the picture here before we start empowerment. So we're going to talk about empowerment, but I want to start off with mission command because I believe that mission. So we're not going to dive into deep mission command, mission command, because that's some stuff at a strategic level stuff, which is we can do it. But again, we don't want our audience. We want to make sure keep it down for our audience to kind of understand some of the stuff here. And this is basic. So we're talking about basic mission command. What is it? And mission command's been out for a while. But again, I think the American Army, we do it better than any other army, any other military in the world. So mission command. So you will see the correlation there for mission command and empowerment. So keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and start. So mission command isn't new, as I mentioned. Indeed, elements of it can be traced back thousands of years when Sun Tzu said, if orders are not thoroughly understood, then the general is to blame, right? But that's what, so that, what does that mean? When orders are not understood, so then the generals are to blame. I guess back in those days when commanders and colonels, they were generals, they were up front leading the charge. They're not back there in the mission command somewhere talk or jock, hey, Wayne, I can see you up there, move up. So, whatever, through the via satellite and stuff. They were up there leading. So mission command. So the question then, for you, for both of you guys, what was your understanding of what mission command is or was back when you were in and is today? Wayne, I mean, you can start off, Wayne, and then Terry will add to it.
Okay. Well, I'll have to say that the mission command as named as such, that doctrine really wasn't adopted at, but all the elements were there before I retired. When you think about the principles, of it, and the fact that you need to have competent leaders, especially junior leaders, that you need to communicate a clear commander's intent, all those other kind of elements that so that you can operate in the most decentralized way possible and still trust that your junior leaders are going to get the job done. I mean, that's, that I think that's always been a goal of any good military throughout history. I think that what you have to realize is it, for every organization and for every mission, it can be a little different. When we talk about, like, when you get, say you're a team leader and you have a lot of brand new soldiers that just came from the replacement detachment, you're not going to be able, you're going to have to be a lot more hands-on and, directly engaged with everything those soldiers do until you learn each other. They learn your SOPs, and they're, and you're confident that they understand the way you operate. But the more you get to function as a cohesive team and a cohesive unit, the more you can, let them, just give them guidance and let them perform. And it's just, it makes a unit function so much better when you're not a micromanager, and that you can just give your junior leaders a task and let them run with it. But along with that comes the you have to accept a certain amount of risk, and as a leader, you have to underwrite a certain amount of potential mistakes made in the name of learning. And it's kind of a mutual trust thing. You've got to make sure that you give clear, concise guidance, and ask for brief backs, from your junior leaders to make sure that they understood your guidance and your intent.
Check on learning, right?
Yeah. And then you just gotta, this is their opportunity to show you what they can do. And if you make a habit of micromanagement, number one, they'll think you're a toxic leader and you don't ever let them plan anything, and it's not good for morale. But you just when you let them go with it, then you see who it really is, the up and coming new leaders, and it's amazing what people can accomplish when they're motivated and they have direction and clear guidance.
Well, thank you, sir. Go ahead, Terry.
Hey, on that one, I agree with Wayne 100%. And I think when you was coming up, it was Airland Doctrine was what we kind of focused on, and that dealt with not all the components. It just dealt with those ones that was in the fight at the time. But I agree with what you said in reference to Mission Command. It deals with having competent leaders, mutual trust. The one key thing that
me as a sergeant major, and I really enjoyed was my commander. We had that shared understanding of his intent. And so, and I give you example of as Sergeant Major Vamoto, when we was in Afghanistan. I remember when he used to fly out to our the different FOBs and COBs, and I meet up with him while we're doing battlefield circulation. He used to sit up there and talk with commanders, and kind of see if they understand the intent, the commander intent. And so basically, he was just trying to make sure that they had a shared understanding and that they will be able to accomplish whatever mission is thrown their way. And so myself started doing those same things because I talked with my commander. I was brigade, but I talked with my commander, say, hey, sir, what's the intent? So I make sure that those commanders are understanding that. So when I get out there, they understand what you're trying to accomplish, what's the end state. And then, and if they are not on the same page, I can kind of get them there. So I'm talking about Mission Command is a big umbrella of things but it's all about command and control and getting everybody in the same, basically synchronized. But hey, those some great points. That's all I had to share on the Mission Command because Mission Command is pretty good.
Sorry, can you put out that slide you have on the principles? I think we kind of I think really Wayne and both of you guys kind of is that cohesive team. Wayne talked about it's about that building those competent leaders, right? So these are the principles. I mean of what the Mission Command is, and you guys kind of mentioned. Wayne, you mentioned accept risk, right? I mean that's just as leaders. Hey, you take the commander's intent and you run with it. Sometimes you got to make a choice, and then those are the risks you got to accept as a leader. Exercise discipline initiative. So pretty much you guys have talked. It's mentioned all of these, but I think one of so when Mission Command first came out, so it's kind of as Terry mentioned, I go around the units. Really, it's understanding is lower echelon understanding what the higher commander's intent is. Because I think the Germans have operated that way for a while. Russians and of course all these other countries, they operate. If the officer's not around, they just sit. Most of the but so I think that's why it's so important when Mission Command is important that all the way down to the lowest level understood what the commander's intent is, because even though when the wind comes in, the storm kick off our satellites, we don't have communication. We lost communication. Hey, you already know what the commander's intent is. Keep fighting, keep pushing forward. Right? We're not just going to sit around and go, "Well, we haven't heard from the commander. I don't know what it's going to be. His last order is going to be." But that's I think in the monologue I said that's why because of our non-commissioned officer, because of our officers, that's why we have the best army in the world. But I think this Mission Command. We've been operating this way. It just wasn't called Mission Command at the time, but now it's just kind of it is Mission Command just a few years ago. It's the same concept, the same principles, and the whole focus of that is ensuring units down to the lowest level understood the commander's intent, and of course leaders accept risk and then to accomplish the mission. So no, I appreciate you guys and that and because that's what the basic of, and we will stick to the basic of Mission Command, because what the purpose I'm trying to do here is that we want to talk the basic of Mission Command, and of course later on you'll see what's the connection of that to empowerment, since that's what our topic is today, empowerment. So we're trying to build up, kind of like building that car, put a few strokes to it and make it go fast. All right, let's continue on. Any alibis before we push forward?
No, I just wanted to add real quick with and all great points. Before this actual show, I went through through some different presentations of, and I know we're keeping it basic, but what came to mind was there's a lot of work and time put up in front in building the teams, and only for the intent of, when it comes to execution time, is to build that speed of execution during the mission, where, when you're operating off of intent, you're not waiting for guidance, and a lot of it is geared towards, kind of, minimizing that time to execute and getting the mission accomplished in a good time. But yeah, that.
Yeah. If I can add one more, another, I think the important thing is, for, for our viewers, and especially those who are not in the military, it's not a certain MOS. Mission Command works with every MOS within the military. You can take a logistic company, it applies the same thing. That's why, we're just dominant, as far as our military, because we understood, that Mission Command. So it's not just for the infantry, so it's not just for the senior leadership, but it's for everyone across, regardless of the MOS. So just want to add that too.
Hey, I just want to say on that, because you hit something that I remember when I was younger, and I was always taught this coming up as a young soldier, and that what made us the most unique army in the world, because the command intent was all the way disseminated all the way to the lowest private, and regardless, and I seen that when I was made it up to the division level, brigade level, where we was given a mission, i.e., if we was doing a training event or in real combat, when we started to lose leaders, those subordinate leaders, they stepped up and they ran with it, and they continue to ran with it. That would make us so unique from any other organization in the world, because we can lose a leader, and that subordinate leader understand the intent, and they keep driving on until mission is complete. And that's what I think make our army and our organization one of the best in the world, because we have taught our subordinates all the way down to the lowest level, understand intent, command intent, and you continue to drive the mission until complete.
You're good. You're right. Absolutely right, Terry. If I can add, if I can add as well, Wayne mentioned SOP, mastering SOP and unit, that's kind of that, builds a confidence, in our young subordinates. I mean, Terry, you and I, when we came in the Army as privates, what about the multiple guards, right? What do we have to go off? All right, we have general orders, right? Those general orders, that's kind of like you're empowered. So most of the time when you're in the multiple in the wee hours of the night, somebody could pull up. You're just a young private there. There ain't no NCO around because he's probably in the guard shack, and what do you got to do? So we follow our general orders, right? That's mission command right there in the essence. We know the intent of what we got to do. We didn't need a commander to come in and tell us, hey, don't allow that guy through, because we have already received our marching orders. So I think Wayne mentioned, I think that's a great point is there when it comes to SOP, comes to, regulations, because those all serve as, that commander's intent in the absence of orders, hey, execute, So, okay.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I don't know how familiar, everybody is with, the way we used to do the military decision-making process. And at a time they were, I think we ended up with it all being called just MDMP, but there was like the abbreviated decision-making process, or ADMP. And, there was all these other like little different versions of it. But what it came down to was, if you're a commander with a lot of time, you want to allow that maximum amount of planning time, right? You bring in say you're a battalion commander, you bring in your subordinate commanders, you give them the battalion operations order, and then they go and you give them time to go and come up with their plan. Then they come back and they brief you and they tell you, this is what I understand your intent to be, right? That's the most important part. They got that. That's what we've been talking about. And then, they kind of brief their plan, and you give them lots of time to come up with, you may give your staff, when you're first doing your battalion order, hey, go out and come back with 3 courses of action for me. And that's when you've got time. But then that abbreviated decision-making process is when you don't have enough time to go through that whole planning cycle and let your subordinates do, what you would like them to do, which is just, brainstorm, come up with the best possible, several courses of action, and then you get to choose. But if your time before you have to conduct a mission is short, then you have to be more directive, and you have to be like, I want you to come up with a plan that has us, doing this. Main effort is going to go, through here, and you have to give them more of the pieces of the puzzle, because there isn't time to do that. And I think, the same translates at any level from the team leader on up. The more constrained you are to the amount of time you have, and maybe the inexperience or the experience level of your folks, then you need to be more directive or less directive. But the key is, I think, and I know this is going to turn into the empowerment talk pretty soon, but the key is you want to allow the maximum leeway that the mission allows for your subordinates to have the maximum time to plan, or to take responsibility to themselves. So there are times when you have to centralize it more, but that's the least ideal way of doing things.
Okay, thanks, sir. Okay, all right, let's move on. I think we killed that question right there. All right, we'll come back to it. I mean, because we still, I'm sure we'll hit more on that as we continue. All right, Sally.
So the Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower's guidance for the invasion of Europe remains the classic example of mission command. He was told, quote, "You will enter the continent of Europe and, in conjunction with the other United Nations, undertake operations aimed at the heart of Germany and the destruction of her armed forces." Why do you gentlemen think we use mission command?
What are you thinking of? I mean, I'm just commenting on the quote here, right? I mean, you're the general on the ground, the Supreme Allied Command. You got a piece of paper from the President of the United States, right? So hey, your mission is, along with really in conjunction with other European allies, do this. That was it. That's the commander's intent. So then it's up to you to figure out, okay, how to make that happen. Yeah. So Sally asked, why do we use mission command in our? I think we kind of touch upon, in the first question, but go ahead.
Well, that's a pretty good one. But my take on it, we use mission command because, yes, in the past, it used to be directed from senior leaders. And as you mentioned in the beginning, when the information did not get disseminated down, or the task was not achieved, that general failed. So now we had to go to mission command, where we had to empower our subordinate leaders to be able to accomplish those tasks, to meet the intent. And and that's and to meet that intent is given through military orders. And so those are the things that I believe where he was getting at was, hey, yes, we have this big operation, and I'm empowering my subordinates to be able to accomplish, the intent. My intent is to do the following. Because mission command has been around for a long time, but it was brought on because too many senior leaders lacked a lot of that delegation of decentralizing, and so they went to the point of, hey, we need to look at more of decentralizing, giving our subordinate trust, a shared understanding on what my commander intent and what my end state need to be. So I think that's the direction they went with that. I sit here and ponder a little more, and I chime in a second.
Well,
Yeah,
if
I mean, I think.
if you get
Oh,
but
go
like,
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say also, Eisenhower, he once said, um, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, right? So he knew that no matter how detailed they planned and how much he wanted to maybe control things from the headquarters, there was no way to know how much communication he was going to have with his subordinate commanders, in theater. There was no way for him to really control such a huge movement of troops and material and everything. So I mean, they planned, but I mean, it's critical for something like that for him to make sure that that the subordinate commanders had, and all the way down to the individual little groups of paratroopers, that were going to land somewhere in Normandy, that they knew no matter who you ended up linking up with on the drop zone, that you knew where your objectives were, and what you had to do. You couldn't wait for command and control from higher. You had to be able to function independently towards the same common goal.
So let me branch off this question a little bit and just say or highlight something in this question. So um, the guidance: you will enter the continent of Europe and, in conjunction with the other United Nations, undertake operations aimed at the heart of Germany and the destruction of her armed forces. I guess my question to you guys also is, do you guys take this as clear guidance? And a part of that follow-up question is, how important is clear guidance to you guys within the context of mission command?
Yeah, I think so. I think even though it's just one paragraph, but that's just like really that's 5 W's right there. Who? You and the European allies, in conjunction. What? Undertake operations aimed at where? They say where because they're already in the location for what? The destruction of our armed forces. That's it. Annihilate the German forces. That's the bottom line. I mean, but I kind of look at that too, right? I mean, the president at the time, I mean, he could easily call, MacArthur, Eisenhower and all these big generals, hey, come to the White House. We need to plan this. But he had confidence in his generals. I mean, Eisenhower didn't just become the supreme Allied commander just because he was weak. I mean, when you move up to those positions, you have served, you got experience, you got wealth of knowledge, especially in operating in these strategic level theaters. So I think the order was clear and it was short to the point, but I think the 5W was embedded in there. So really, to me, if I was a guy on the ground, it's like, well, that's clear enough. Then I got to get my staff. We got to figure out, okay, who, what, when, why on the ground, who's going to do what. But I think that's what he did. I mean, if you've seen the movies, you read the books, that's what he did. They didn't just kind of, he didn't get the order over the radio while they're on the beach. Hey, okay, let's go ahead and do it. They still have a few days to plan, as and Wayne alluded to earlier about the planning. We still got to do that who, what, where, and why, and how. That was a big thing, is how we're going to do it. They already got guidance, but then I think what they got to figure out the how. you know. But if I can add to the why we do mission command, I think just simply it's a synchronization of efforts, right? I mean, I think that's a synchronization of effort at every level. I think that's just one. I mean, it could be many, but I think also it's that's why we use mission command. It's to synchronize, regardless. Like just like here, the president, he's way up here in the United States. He sent orders to the general that's in Europe. You know, that's a distance of thousands of miles away through continents, but he trusts his people. He trusts his leaders. So and when he gave the mission, I mean, we all know it was a success. Granted, there was some challenges that he faced, but it was a successful mission. So, but that's to me, that's what we use mission command. I think it's mainly synchronization of efforts at all levels, and really with the end state of mission accomplishment.
Would you like to jump on that, Terry?
Yeah, I agree. Just thinking what Sergeant Major just spoke about, especially in the synchronization piece of it, understanding at all levels what the intent. And to me, that letter, yes, it's clear guidance. What I'm talking about, if you look at it, you break it down, it's clear guidance. And the bottom line is to destroy the enemy. And so, from there, yes, I got it. I understand it. And, but it's the synchronization of all your resources and your combat, power is just that is the key. It's all about, controlling those assets and giving it to disseminating that down to the subordinate leaders that they are able to do their job. And and I'm just thinking back on some things in reference to how they used to lead in the back, in years ago. They used to be up front and giving directions, flags, and that don't work that way. It don't work that way now. You know, the commander is back. He's in his talk, and he's just watching, and he's not saying much. He's just watching, and he's just seeing how his subordinates are, executing the mission. Now, I have seen commanders come in and they change some plans, but most of the time, that's go back to what Wayne was talking about in reference to getting that feedback, those back briefs. That's how commander really understand that they're subordinate understand their commander intent. So it's just one of those in reference to understanding what is the intent, what we're trying to accomplish, and how you disseminate all that information.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, if a thought comes up during our conversation as we move on, we can always, come back to it. So, but let's move forward. So we all talk about mission command. You guys, all of us here, have seen mission command at different levels. We've all been privates, team leaders, squad leaders, platoon level, company level, battalion, brigade, division. Different levels in the army. So we've seen the mission command executed at different levels of our military. So for you guys, from your experience, how effective is mission command during your time, and from what you know of today? Share an example, if you like. Is it effective? Is it working as the way it's designed, or is it waste of time, or we need to learn more about it? And from your experience, when you were still in uniform.
Well, from my experience, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really didn't understand mission command until after I was left brigade command, and and went up at the division level. That's when I started to really understand mission command. The intent and how it works, because it is extremely hard. I'm talking about, for example, that's why we have our simulation centers, where commanders go and, scenarios are put up, commanders look at it, they go through their MDMP process, and everybody start to look at, hey, the intent, this is the end state. Do you think we're going to meet that? Or, I'm talking about, it's just, I think when I was coming up, it was effective because, at the time, I don't think the Army really went to mission command or changed it to mission command until a few years back, like 2016, 2018, somewhere around there. But I think we knew the concept, and I think back then it was effective because it was more of looking at synchronizing of the different uh, battlefield functions, ensuring that we are able to, accomplish those intent, the command intent that was out there. Because a lot of time, I remember up in Alaska, for example, wow, we used to go to the field a lot, and we used to do a lot of simulations because of resource. We didn't have all that. We had money, but we didn't have money like that because sitting in the Arctic, you burn some fuel. That is costly. So we did a lot of simulations, at LTPs and things like that, where we sat there and we practiced our mission command. And I think that made my commander much more effective because he started to understand how things, he understood the big picture. He understood exactly his vision of where he wanted to go, and his subordinates, they all was in the same, they was on tune, and everyone learned from it. um, I had some pretty good commanders there that really knew mission command, and it worked.
Thanks, Terry. Well, I can add what Wayne's thinking there. Wayne, you got something, Wayne, or you want me to?
Oh, just a little. And one of the things they tell you about organizations, right? You go to a new organization, a bunch of people that have worked together before, and you have like 4 phases you go through, and they call it form, storm, norm, and then perform, right? First one, everyone just getting together, figuring out, who's who. And then there's that storm, which is like, oh, that's my job, or that's not my job, that's your job. And, like you all kind of figure out where you fit in the organization. And, who's good at what. And, you got your roles straightened out and everything. And then you reach a norm where everybody understands where they fit in, what they're good at, who, proficiency levels and stuff. And then that last step is perform. And you really have to be, to really see mission command, I think, as everything it should be. You have to be in that phase. You really need to be in that 4th phase. So you have to, work out all those kinks to really be efficient. And I don't know. I guess I keep harping on the same thing. It's like, you've got to have that competence and the mutual trust, and that's built during those phases, but to really go out and combat and expect to be effective using mission command, you got to have all those principles in place.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I mean, I guess you could use the one example, when we were in the Sinai mission. I mean, we had E6s running OPs, hundreds of kilometers away from headquarters or whatever. And it's because everyone trained, for a long time, and they understood what the mission was, what their task and purpose was. And I had no doubt that all those guys were ready to do it.
I think that's a great example, Wayne, of mission command. As anybody has deployed, the Sinai, seeing how that missions perform. These are all NCOs. These are, I mean, these outposts or camp. I mean, they're everywhere. But the commander in each of those camp, as Wayne mentioned, that's a staff sergeant. Staff sergeant and his squad, or sometimes it could be a platoon sergeant, platoon leader just camping out of there, but they move around. But that's that's empowerment right there. That's a mission command. They understand what they must do at that camp. So of course, if we understand the mission there in Sinai is observe and report, and that's the foundation right there. So when understanding that, That's the intent. When you see something out there, oh, hey, there's something out there. Observe. Let's gather some data and then report it. You know, so that is mission command. And of course, you know, this war, global war on terrorism. Say again now, Sinai at least there is more a peacetime mission, but now you're talking about our men and women deployed in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other parts where live rounds are thrown, where they're in combat patrol. Again, these are young NCOs, young platoon leaders on patrol out there, you know, making decisions. But they took the commander's intent that we talked about before the show, how the young lieutenant, a young platoon sergeant, who's got to do a KLE, a key leader engagement with a mullah, or it could be a village elder or police chief or somebody, something, a mission that is normally done by these, Congress people, these Democrats and Republicans. Somebody, they're the one that would normally do something like that. Well, you got the young soldier there on the ground, you know, most of the time, it's not like he stood in front of the mirror and practiced a speech. He just go there and he understood what the commander's intent is about what is it we're trying to get out of this, this guy. So they formulate the question to get asked, and they go, and very successful at it. So what a great example, the both of those for what mission command is, and that's Sinai, and also in Afghanistan and Iraq. I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I think I just want to also like bring that example too. Like, let's say in Afghanistan, you'll have like a brigade with 3 different battalions with 3 different types of missions. That's something these leaders have just been dropped into, and then the nature of the mission of those 3 battalions may be different, all different, and with a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns where these leaders are empowered, they understand the intent, and then go out and and get after it. But I think that was that's an example. And then we go back and do like a humanitarian aid mission. Once these guys come back, do a train up, they're like, oh wait, Haiti's got an earthquake. What we got to send the GRF, or we got to send 82nd, 2nd Brigade or something like that down there to do this humanitarian mission. And then so mission changed, unknowns. Then they go in there and just knock it out the park, just based on commander's intent.
But that would make us so unique. I'm talking about that's what make us different than any other country out there, because we are able to go from being a combative soldier into a humanitarian. And I'm talking about we can flip the switch just like that, just from a commander intent. And so that's what makes us so unique. And I was just thinking what you said about Afghanistan. When we went to Afghanistan, you have your headquarters, division headquarters, but every brigade come from some different other organization. At the time that we was there, I think we had us from Alaska. You had 82nd, you had 101st, you had 173rd, and and you had all these different brigades. And I think it was one more, and we had a Polish airborne brigade there. So
we had Polish, and we also have a National Guard brigade out of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, and so you had all these different brigades there. And you had a one headquarters, division level. But guess what? We all understood the commander intent, and we was able to accomplish our job. All the way down to subordinate, leaders, those squad leaders that was out there leading those patrols. So you brought up a great point.
Yeah. Well, just to go further than that, Terry. I mean. As a RC East or any RC, we had 42 countries under the RC, right? I mean, you mentioned all those countries. I mean, how do we talk? Well, each of those have their own mission, but they all understood the commander's intent, the RC commanders. Hey, here's what needs to happen. They all execute their mission. Again, another great example of what mission command. I think that's so we kind of answer the question. Why is that? Why do we use mission command? Well, look at that. We've been successful thus far in any operation because of mission command, because everybody understood what the mission is, what the commander's intent is. In the absence of order, execute. This is what you do. So yeah, that's awesome. That's great conversation. There's great examples as well. Hopefully some young specialists, a young E5, they're taking notes, what examples of, mission. Why do we use mission command? Okay. All right, let's move on.
All right, this next question is pretty interesting, as it presents a divide between, like mission and garrison. So the question is mission command easier to practice in conflict than in a peacetime military? And is there a difference between the employment of mission command in the barracks garrison versus on operation or the exercise?
Yeah, this is one of those questions, not a yes or no. I think if it's a yes, it's explanation. If it's no, there's a longer explanation as well. But from our experience, what have you seen?
Well, I mean, you got to say, obviously, the stakes are higher in combat. So, I'd have to go back to that form, storm, norm, perform thing. If you're the risk is much lower in those first three categories. If you're not in a combat situation, no one's shooting at you, and hopefully back in the barracks or on garrison. So, but you definitely need to have all those kinks worked out to execute it over in the theater and not not have any really bad results.
Well, on what I think is this, we train as we fight. I don't think it's easier or harder, because at the end of the day, you have to, you have to be able to execute it. And the only way you execute is by rehearsing it and training to do it. And, a lot of things that we do every day. Day-to-day operation, we do some type of mission command. And so that's how you got to look at it, because you train as you fight. And so I strongly believe that it's really no difference, because you still getting the same outcome, because you either going to give them, hey, this is what my intent is. This is what I want the outcome to be, regardless if it's in peacetime or if it's in, deployment. I think it's going to be the same. So I'm a firm believer, you train as you fight. And so if you train, if you practice hard, believe me, when you get out there, you're gonna be the same. Ain't gonna be no change.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, you can't not do it in training and then expect to just start doing it in theater, because that's the training is where you get all those kinks ironed out.
Absolutely, I concur with both of you guys. But to Terry's point, it starts during training time. Back in the garrison environment, right? Because that's where we all learn the basic fundamentals and master it. Just like that's the reason why units go to JRTC or NTC as a final gauge of readiness before they, hey, they get a stamp of approval. You're ready to go now. So this is where we start. But I think if I answer the question, I think it'd be much easier to enforce it in combat, right? In Big Y, because not only we're trained, but again, the pucker factor is very high in the combat zone. There ain't no time to be messing around, But I think in garrison enforcing it, yeah, there's so many challenges. There's so many what do you call it? Interference, right? That can interfere with the enforcing of mission command, especially if it's a barracks thing. Leaders that's why leaders go to the barracks and check and stuff like that. There's too much of that that kind of pulled the priorities away, whether it be taskings or whatever the case may be, families, emergency, things like that, that kind of that can affect that enforcement in garrison. But I concur wholeheartedly. The training starts in a garrison environment. So before you even get there, before you get to combat, hey, you master it, enforce that ain't nobody gonna get no lip because you get shot at or get shot for if you don't pay attention. So that's a good question. Okay. Well, that's I think it's me. Okay, that was you, Sally, right? So
Yep.
let's continue. But again, if there's a thought pop in your head doing it as we move forward, just hey, let me go back to this because we all get inspired differently. Just kind of like we're all in the spiritual different. Well, it looked like all four of us are spiritual people, but our spirituality level is probably different from each other. So that's why I say a thought might come to your mind now. Some of us might come later. So as a thought comes to your head, hey, just pop in and say, hey, let me go back to question before that. So doing this, so now kind of shift gear now, right? So we kind of talk about mission command, talking about why it's important and how are we using it, is it effective, and again, we only touched the basics of what mission command. We didn't even talk about strategic level because we don't want to get there yet. So now we want to shift gear. So during your time in the military, so what have you learned or experienced of what empowerment is? We've now kind of start, getting into empowerment. What do you think? Well, from your experience, what have you seen, or what do you understood empowerment to be?
I could start again, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
to me, empowerment is, I mean, we've been leading up to this the whole talk, right? And mission command is totally dependent on empowerment, and it's just the ability, or it's the act of giving your subordinates the opportunity, the maximum opportunity to be responsible for. For what they do, from training to planning to executing any task that's given them. And it doesn't mean that there's no accountability. Uh, you have to demand results, and have them come back and tell you what they're doing, but you've got to give them that leeway to do that planning and to show you what they're made of, really.
So pretty much kind of like your child, like a dealing with a baby. You gotta let them walk. I mean, let them figure it out. Because sometimes, how many times you tell the kid, "Don't touch it; it's hot," right? Gotta let them figure it out. Because you tell them many times if they but most of them they will not. Once they touch it, they'll learn. It's kind of like I think that's to Wayne's point. They got to learn somewhere, somehow. Going to
Yeah.
combat is not the right time to say, okay, Terry, you're now the squad leader. But I have not trained, or hey, so and so, you're now the team leader. So I think that's the empowerment, as Wayne talks about. I should let them give me the opportunity to, to excel, give me the opportunity to learn and
Yeah.
and lead.
And of course that comes with I mean, that example of letting your kid walk, and they might fall, or they might touch a stove and burn their hand, but that's the last time they'll do that. But there's limits to it also. You don't want to let them have the chance to fall off a cliff, or out a window or something. And that is that's definitely a challenge in some arenas. Like I was a MTT advisor to the one of the Kandaks there of the Afghan National Army, and we would go with them we would help them plan missions, but we wanted them to plan, right, and then we would go out and provide the coalition effects when they did combat missions. And you want to make them plan and do all the stuff on their own, because it's like they're not really going to learn it until they're allowed to fail. But I guess this comes back to that previous question of, is it easier in garrison or in or in combat? But you're in combat with them, and it's like, man, I really want them to learn, but I can't let them completely fail, because that means a lot of people are going to die, unfortunately. And that was a challenge that I dealt with, and it was difficult because we found ourselves being more of a crutch to them than we wanted to be in certain circumstances, just because of their level of competence.
Hey, it's Terry. I think also when the question asks is deals with giving them the ability to be part of the team, giving them the left and right limits in reference to learning. They can make those mistakes, and those are things that's why as leaders, that's why we are there to pick them up and push them in the right direction. If they hit obstacles, you're there to knock those obstacles down, but you're still also there as that leader and giving them the ability to make decisions on their own. Now, some decisions might be mistakes, but however, that's why you are there. As that leader, that you can go ahead and kind of coach them in the right direction. So I think empowerment deals with giving them the ability to stand on their own, make decisions on their own, and we learn from it, and then we just correct them as they go along. And then hopefully by the time they get ready to execute whatever that mission is, you feel comfortable enough to let them go and do it.
Yeah. Sally, got any add on, Sally?
I'm hearing the same theme here, where there's a golden thread of trust. I mean, where there we have to get our organization and help our organization get to the point to where we could trust it, we could trust them, we can trust our subordinate leaders. And I think Alex Lynn had mentioned something in the comments here, where he says his own opinion. It's about professionalizing the force, and I think for us to get our force to that point, where it could be a leaderless organization sometimes, where if we're not there, they understand the commander's intent, not just ours, the one level, two levels up, and they totally understand. And it comes down, I think, so what you guys are all talking about is getting our guys to that point where we could trust, that they could do this on their own and walk on their own, and they can do it.
Amazing to see what, especially like what 100 plus motivated troops can do when you just, you give them direction and then let them go. Isaiah, I know you remember that defense of the Mount City there at Fort Campbell, right? We had a battalion. We were the OP4 for a battalion that was coming to do an air assault and attack into the try to take that objective, and we had like a day to fortify it. And I mean, I was just like, hey, XO, go find wire wherever you can find concertina, go find it. And man, he brought back like 200 rolls. I don't know where he got the stuff that he got, but like everyone just set to work, and we had that thing. It was unbelievable. I mean, like we just wiped out the whole battalion. They had the OCs had to open up a breach in the wire to let them in, and then like come and administratively kill a lot of us just so those guys could get into the village to have a place to crash and sleep. But it was awesome watching what all those motivated troops could do if you just let them give them direction and let them work on it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, all the examples you guys gave. I mean, so I guess empowerment. I mean, that's as you guys allude to, is giving them opportunity, to grow and to learn by doing it themselves. I mean, we're still there as leaders to provide the overwatch, provide that purpose, direction, and motivation. But when you give them, subordinates, a task and let them go, and I think Wayne mentioned in the beginning, allude to about micromanaging. When you micromanage, you lose that. You're not going to learn that, trust by micromanaging. But when you empower them, give them the tools and the assets, man, you go a long way. I mean, I think a good example, Terry may have the same experience. I remember when I first came to the Army, you know, I think one of our shows we talked about back to the basics, right? So there's a basic, and I conclude there's a basic between or difference between those that came before 9/11 and then those who came in the Army after 9/11. The two different basics, because some of us who came before 9/11, we're talking about training. We know what training is. We conducted training. We write training. We develop training because that's what, as a young corporal, I was, hey, Vamoto, here's your task. You're going to give the platoon a task. I mean, you're going to teach the platoon on entering a what do you call them? Uh, the not the ditch. What do you call uh,
Trench line.
the trench line. Okay, enter the trench line. That was one of our tasks back in those days. So you're going to teach the platoon that. Here's a manual. Here's a TM. All right. But at that point, they already taught me how to do how to write a training plan, right? So now, so I've been developed how to do that. Now they're empowering me. Okay, get the class ready. So not only they gave me the task, they gave me the resources. So I had to do the reading, doctrine. That's doctrine right there. That's something that we kind of veered away from since 9/11. 9/11 since 9/11, we focus more on TTPs. You know, when you ask, where did you get that from? Well, that's TTP when we're in Afghanistan. But most guys cannot quote what doctrine, what FM, AM, whatever, that where they find it. But anyway, the bottom line is I'm trying to say that's how I was empowered as a young NCO. I was given the responsibility to teach the platoon, but it wasn't just like, hey, go fend for yourself. I was provided the right resources, focusing on doctrine, on how to, and then so not only that, I was given a timeline. Hey, on Friday morning at 9 after formation, so you're going to pitch your class to me and the platoon leader. So that's how I was developed. So they will they'll take notes, they'll correct me. I go back and and then they will check me out again before I even pitch in front of the platoon. But that's empowerment. What did that do for me as a young soldier, as a young corporal? Well, it gave me confidence because they not only they didn't just throw me in the wolves, they said they gave me the task and purpose. They also gave me the resources. But then they mentored me along the way. So one, now I just gain knowledge of what training is all about. I just gain knowledge of the tasks I'm about to perform, but I also gain confidence in presenting it in front of the people, the platoon, because not too many people have confidence getting in front of a platoon, especially a private, to teach you something. But that's empowerment right there. That's in my early days in the military. So then, as we become NCO, like senior platoon sergeant, we do that for our young soldiers. That's how we develop others. So I'll leave it there. I see Terry got
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking on that same what you just spoke about. I can remember it was in 1980. So I'm telling my age, I'm getting older. This was like 1986. Young Sergeant Gardner. We was doing the exercise in Alaska, and I was a forward observer, and for some reason I wasn't part of this exercise, but I was with them. And so the platoon sergeant came up to me and he said, "I need you to move these vehicles, these SUSVs from this location to this." He gave me directive, he gave me his intent, and of course, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And now it's midnight, and I had to be there by I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning. The 10-man tent had to be set up, and I was moving 3 vehicles. So, young Gardner, like, I'm not sure if I can do this, but he gave me the directives, he gave me the location, he gave me everything I needed. He said, "I see you in the morning." So they went on their mission, and I started on ours. I come rolling in there right at 5 because we had some issues, and so But when I rolled in there, we dropped our stuff, put the tent up, put the uke up, got everything, going. And all of a sudden, Toon Sergeant come up to me and say, "Hey, how long you been here?" I said, probably about 5-10 minutes. He said, "I knew you can do it." And so that alone built my confidence, in my ability to be able to do whatever anyone tell me. And from that day on, it just helped me as a young NCO go, hey, I can do whatever they want me to do, as long as I have the right, um, information, understand the intent and and the resources to do it. So that's why I like empowerment, because empowerment is there for a reason. It builds those young leaders to be able to do those things that they think they cannot do. And we are there to resource them, we train them, we resource them, and that's our job to do that. So, hey, thanks, Sergeant Major, for bringing back those memories.
Yeah. So if I could share, I mean, there's so many of those memories, right? But I think another good of empowerment. So I was a battalion sergeant major, no slack. So it was I think we're getting ready to go to we had a battalion FTX coming up. So really we were preparing. Well, actually it's a brigade training exercise, but we were marshaling by a battalion, and they were moved by battalion. So every battalion had their timeline when they need to depart, as they need SP. So I walk around, checking my, doing troop leader procedures. So I'm, walking around checking my companies, doing what they're doing. And then my Delta company, my tow companies, right there, they're doing, I see they're mounting their guns, right? So anyway, I walk up there, and I got a young private, just came in the unit like a month, right? So he's up there, you know, putting the gun in, but he's tying down the laser, 550 core, right? So he's tying that down. So here I am. So I look up, I say, "Hey, son." So he said, "Oh, yeah, yes, sir, Major." I said, "Eddie, relax. Teach me about this gun." And again, I just want you to show. I don't know much about the tow, but this system here. So I want you to teach me as if I don't know anything about this weapon system. I want you to teach me, Sergeant Major. I said, teach me about this weapon. So this young man's like, I just empowered him. He was so confident. Sergeant Major, this tow here is a da 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 is wire guided missile, blah. And then the squadron, the staff sergeant, he came up to see this young sergeant. I mean, this young private. He's up there flailing his arm, trying to explain to me what a tow is, right? He yelled at this young private, "Hey, good to see you talking to Battalion Sergeant Major," right? So, sorry. So I say, "Sorry, just relax." He's teaching me how. He's teaching me about this tow system. I said, "Come on over here. Maybe we'll both learn something," right? So he came and stood next to me, and this young private went on, but the confidence in his voice, just because, hey, wow, I'm teaching my sergeant major about my job. I'm teaching him, and that's how we empower soldiers, right? So what's the end state of that? Well, again, confident. You got a confident soldier, man. Now he wants to learn more about his job, because he's like, I'm assuming, he taught me exactly whatever the basic knowledge, but now he's empowered, so he's probably gonna, in his mind, man, I need to learn more about my weapon system. So the next time might be the battalion commander, or might be my commander, and I want to be ready to throw more ammunition. But that little example right there, empowering that young soldier right there to, really to teach his leader, it also shows, hey, I don't know about this thing here. That's your job. Teach me. So I tell you, the confidence in that young man, it went sky high. I gave him a coin on the spot, because he knew his job, and that staff sergeant, I made him do push-up for being stupid, so yeah, he learned something that day as well about empowerment. Anyway,
You,
I
you just
go
you
on. I
just
got many
open
stories, but that's just one of the, that stood out in my mind.
you say you just open up a couple of things there. One is you talked about empowerment, but I think there's another key piece there that I'm sure you three as leaders, probably experienced this for yourself too, where you opened yourself up to being a little vulnerable to letting your troopers know that you don't know it all, and they were okay with it, and you were okay with it. And I think part of that too, probably like helps helps them understand it's good to be a humble leader, to admit that you don't know, but and I think that's part of it too, which empowers them is that they, that I think that piece there makes them want to follow you even more, is because they know that you are humble in that moment. Well, he truly doesn't know what I could teach him here, and I want to teach him, and so that I just thought I'd share that.
Hey,
Oh,
Sally,
thanks,
this
Sonny.
Terry. The one thing that that was a good point, and the one thing that I take from all that is a lot of time our soldiers, we try our best to show them that we are human. And I'm talking about, and a lot of leaders lack that. They lack that ability to show they are human. And if you show that you're human, they know that one, you care, and you're sincere. And that's the key to being successful and being able to lead our young soldiers, because it's about the human domain first, because that's what it's about. And as long as you can accept that, and they accept that piece, it'll go a long way.
Yeah, it was awesome. You want me to jump to the next question, Isaiah?
Yes.
Okay, so an expert on Mission Command, his name, I think you guys may have heard of his name before, Donald Vandergriff. He explained, in the chaos and uncertainty of modern war, our troops must be empowered to make decisions, take the initiative, and lead boldly. What is it that we hope to achieve through empowerment? So that's the question. What is it that we hope to achieve through, empowerment? And I'm sure we, through the previous questions, we may have already touched on it, but maybe you guys can, can shed something new or something on this.
Yeah, we dance around it. I think, we covered that in some of the question, but new thoughts. I mean, like, so we all get inspired differently because of our spirituality level. So, well, I mean, I can throw something
I,
out. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, ultimately, what we want to achieve from empowerment is developing better soldiers that are able to accomplish those tasks that we put in front of them, without hesitation. And the key to it is they understand that we provide them the leadership, the training, the resources to be able to do that. And so that's what the ultimate, the end state I achieve, that I think, by going giving them empowerment, is just making them better soldiers, being able to take that take what they learned from us and disseminate that down to other soldiers, for them to follow. So that's what I take from it.
I think you're mute, Wayne.
I'm not on mute according to my phone.
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Maybe because you're in Alaska, the kind of little
Yeah,
delay
maybe
there.
it is. Maybe it is. But I mean, both of you gentlemen have told us stories about when you were, pretty young in the Army, and how you had leaders that empowered you to perform some tasks that, that bolster your confidence. And I mean, just looking at your careers after that, I mean, it obviously, I mean, you had to come in and be made of, you had to have the right material, but you were given those opportunities, and clearly, you both had some great leaders that invested the time in you, that, that was a seed that was planted, and you can see what came of it. You both had outstanding careers. So, and I know that from your stories, you've passed that, passed it along to the next generation. So, well, there it is. That's the magic of empowerment.
Well, thank you, sir. You're absolutely right. I mean, if I listen to, I mean, in the very beginning when we talk about Mission Command, Wayne throw out some, competent leaders. Talk about trust in your leaders, mutual trust. Those are some of the terms that Wayne threw out there. So really, so when I and then I think Terry, you've been talking about adaptive, soldiers, through training and through empowerment. So when I look at what do we hope to get out of it. So I don't know if you guys seen 1 minute video on trust that Solid created there a couple weeks ago on Author. Terry, you heard me talk about King Arthur many times, on the leadership there. So, I love King Arthur, the whole thing. But the fall of Camelot was because of, trust. The trust was needed. And I think that's a key thing right there. What we want to get out of empowerment is trust. We want to trust our leaders. We want to trust our subordinates, and the vice versa. We want them to trust us. And then through empowerment, that's what we get out of it. They trust us because, hey, they're letting me do this stuff. Hey, they're letting me be the driver. You know, and they're stepping back. They're coaching me. They're mentoring me along the way. So that's instance trust right there, and or the general mutual trust, as Wayne mentioned. And that's because it comes with empowerment. So I think when we discuss this is what do we hope to get out of empowerment? Well, really, I out and agile, adaptive leaders and soldiers, right? Because we want to, and of course, for the our battle. I mean, in our army or in the military, what wins a nation's war is confident and competent leaders, right? And we want the same thing for competent soldiers. So, what do we hope to get out of empowerment? Is confident and competent soldiers and leaders, because that's what wins wars, and trust. But trust is a key thing, it's a big thing, when it comes to empowerment. So, I'll leave it there. But I think great answers from both of you guys. So, I'll let you have any add before we push forward.
No, I'm good with that.
All right. Sally's just chilling. He's like, hey, I'll let these guys, battle that out. Well, so Donald Vandegrift, I mentioned him to you guys, right? So he's the mission command expert. I mean, that guy, he's a Marine officer, former Marine officer. He's the guy that goes around all the strategic meetings and courses and teach mission command. Yeah, so he's a good friend. So he worked out of our headquarters when we were there as RCE. I mean, as the IJC. So that's where I got to meet him and got to see all the stuff that he was doing. So he is the author of this, Mission Command, as well as that Colonel Shackleton I mentioned earlier. So to continue on the next one is, so my experience was that some leaders in the military perceived there was too much risk in the empowerment of subordinates. I mean, Wayne mentioned earlier about, except we also know from the principles of mission command, one of them is risk, accept risk. But yet we have leaders today that don't think, hey, empowering subordinates is kind of a risk, right? So what would you say to such leaders? Knowing what you know now about mission command, about empowerment, you're a seasoned guy, you've been around the block, you've seen it all, and you hear this, and then all of a sudden you stop on your track and go, and what would you say to such leaders besides doing push-ups?
Well, what I would tell them is, honestly, I say no. Hey, the only way you're going to develop those subordinates, you got to empower them. Yeah, that's what we do. We take risks. But guess what? Risk, I'm willing to take that risk, but then I'm going to be able to develop like you said, a good, great, agile leader, which, that will trust me in reference to, because, I don't think it's too much risk, because that's our job. Our job is to empower our subordinates to be able to take our place, when it's time for us to hang up our boots. So you have to take risks. You got no other choice but to take risks because you have to give subordinate a chance. That's part of life. That's part of being a human. If you don't give them a chance, you're going to hurt yourself because you're never going to be able to develop a good leader. Because, yeah, I guarantee those ones that said, oh, um, no, too much risk. I guarantee they're not a good leader because good leaders take risks because they take a chance on developing subordinates.
Good to hear you, Wayne. I know something's
Yeah.
Man. All right, am I on there now?
I think one of
I'm
those
happy
Chinese
to
balloons are flying
microphone
over
next time.
Alaska right now.
Yeah.
you should
Chinese
have shot
balloon.
it down earlier, Wayne.
Yeah, exactly. If I'd have seen that thing, yeah, I think if I didn't come through before, it was you. You are, I agree 100%. You're accepting risk, the one way or the other. The key is to accept that risk and develop those leaders when it's when the stakes are lower, because by not doing it, you're not getting rid of the risk. You're just postponing it to when it's going to cost you more. So definitely, I mean, accepting risk is a part of everything we do.
I think it also takes wise and competent leaders because that kind of helps in the risk mitigation processes where the leader knows how to make those measured decisions to not avert risk but just mitigate risk, but ensure that whatever happens to those leaders, they bend but they don't break. you know but to add a little bit to that, I think there's a Wayne Gretzky saying that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, like if you don't take a shot on those leaders, I mean, they're not going, they're not going to grow. And yeah. So I'll stop there.
No, absolutely. So here's the thing from my end, right? So Terry knows doing Afghanistan. I always in my rucksack or in my assault pack, I have these laminated um, letters of concern. I got them printed on 5x7 card, and the NCOs know. I told exactly. I mean, I told Terry and his NCOs, and hey, I have these letters of concern. So what does that mean? I'm going to watch you. I'm going to go on patrol, but if I see things that concerns me about you, the NCOs, and your performance, the way you handle you deal with soldiers, if it concerns me, you're going to get a letter of concern. So what's the purpose of that? I want them to fix their problems, and they know exactly. If I come back next time, if I see you doing the same thing, then I guess you'll no longer be a platoon sergeant in that platoon. I guess you'll no longer be a first sergeant or a sergeant major. Terry heard, hey, I've removed a few platoon sergeants, a few first sergeants. And again, I don't have the authority to remove company commanders, but I was able to, through my commander, removed a couple of commanders and the battalion commander. Just toxic environment. So, but again, but it starts with things like this. When you hear, oh no, I don't trust these little, blah blah blah. Dude, if you don't trust, these are the guys going to cover your left and right when you actually do maneuvers. These are the guys that does all the work around here. Granted that we NCOs were leaders, but how many times you see leaders actually doing the work? Good leaders always up there setting example, doing it, working with their men, with their soldiers. So that's why. So that's my answer to these guys. I mean, for them to think this way, these guys are just, well, either they need to go read their what is it, ADP 6.0. I guess that's that covers mission command and also talks about empowerment. or hey, you don't need to be a leader if you don't know how to empower your subordinates. That's delegation of authority. That's delegating the task, and and that's how you train the next guy. You know, we've always been told as NCOs and as leaders in our military, we always train our replacement. You know, if you're a squad leader, you train those team leaders because something happens, they're the one that's going to step up and take your role. If you're a platoon sergeant, you got to mentor those squad leaders because one of them, God forbid, something happened to you, they're going to step up, and that's all empowerment. So empowerment builds trust. Empowerment builds the confident, in our subordinate, the mutual trust. So and also that it builds confident and competent leaders. So, but that's what I did. One of the points Larry was there. Those little magic council statement called letters of concern. It doesn't do much. It doesn't hurt you UCMJ wise, but it's a learning tool. Is what I use to kind of not so much in a threatened way, but is a way for NCOs to fix themselves. To self correct. So I'll leave it there.
Hey, sorry. Hey, only thing I can say, I have seen the black Chinook come in when you have came to a few of the cobs, and and you took them out. They were no longer in command, so and it was effective.
Well, by no means we're mean. We're just doing our role. I mean, our job. And a lot of these guys, it happens. Stuff of following standards. The standards not change in combat, but then is different from combat in the garrison. You shave, you brush your teeth when you wake up. You go to somebody's cop and you got guys come out with doggone like Wayne with a beard. Now you look around and say, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Because nobody ever visit them and all of them, So that's what I say is it's a again they failed to do it, and I have but do what's right not only for so okay, all right, so let's
Well, I can vouch for
I think it was
your being a
me.
stickler
Sully
for
was it?
standards. I remember I was taking a PT test back in the day when you were the first sergeant, and I was one thing I was really good at was push-ups, and I remember I maxed the push-ups in like just over a minute, and I got up, I stopped, and Isaiah Vamoto, he said, "Sir, you didn't meet the standard," and I'm like, "What are you talking about, First Sergeant? I maxed him," and he said, "Sir, the standard is you have 2 minutes in which to do as many as you can do." And I'm like, you got me there.
Yeah, but it was good. We had some good times. But that's a story to be told. I just took over the company, and when I asked the training room guy, "Hey, I need to see the list of all the overweight soldiers in the overweight program." He said, "First of all, we don't have anybody on that." I said, how is that possible? We got like 15, 20 fat bodies on formation. So I asked, Captain Wayne Hunt. I said, "Sir, I would like to give the company a diagnostic APFT this Friday." Hey, for sure, I'm all for it. So anyway, so that was the standard. You got 2 minutes to do as many push-ups you can, not do the minimum based on your age group and then get up like some of the NCOs did. So anyway, no, thanks for reminding that, sir. That's a good story. All right. Is that me, Salih, or you? I think Salih.
No, it's me now.
Okay.
So is there a correlation between mission command and empowerment? And I'm sure we may have touched up a little bit about it, but so with that, what key ingredients do both mission command and empowerment require for success? And I think we may have already touched up on that too, but if you guys want to go ahead and take a stab at it.
All right. I go first on this one. I think Sergeant Major Vamoto hit this one on the head. How they correlate is by trust. It's all about trust, establishing mutual trust, and how you the ingredients to for both mission command and for success is leaders trusting their subordinates, leaders doing the right thing, ensuring that they are providing those opportunities for their subordinates to develop and grow and be, um, productive and great leaders. And it all stems from just trust. And so I maybe hit that on the head. It's all about trust, and that's how both of them correlate. So that's my piece on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can really add to that.
Yeah. No, and you guys are absolutely. We've been. As Sally was right. We've been hitting it along the way, and maybe for our viewers that just joined us, I can remind again. So some of the correlation. Terry mentioned trust is a key ingredients in all that, and then of course competent leaders, mutual trust. You got accept risk. So pretty much got to go back to the principles of mission command. But absolutely, trust is a key essential in anything that we do in the Army. Same thing as at home with your own children. It's all about that trust. You trust me. I trust my kids to go out at night and expect to come back when I tell them be home. You know. So anyway, yeah, let's move forward since I think we've beat that to the. But again, if you ever feel inspired along, just come back. Let us know, and then
Can I
go
share
ahead.
one more thing that you guys had talked about, Isaiah? That
Go ahead,
I
sir.
don't think. I think there's one element to that you guys were talking about. I don't think we really hammered into it, and it goes to the point where you were talking about why you um, got rid of those toxic people, and I think the term was disciplined initiative. And I think to weave that into like as one of the key ingredients, I think that was not really verbalized. Like that kind of that kind of like kind of lit a light bulb moment when because you can't just give them free rein and rope and assume all the risk at the leadership that they're going to do the right thing all the time. There's got to be some discipline initiative in there, but I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thanks, Alan. Absolutely. Yeah, discipline. Yeah, that's another key ingredient why we empower our subordinates, to build that discipline. Okay. Well, let's move forward. So we've talked about empowerment. Should we be empowered? I mean, I'm speaking now of the mainly this more like to the NCO Corps. Should we be empowered if we allow a lack of adherence to the core principles and values of our profession of arms that leads to either specific or general misconduct? Should we be empowered?
Well, I think that falls into the that one category, one principle of mission command of disciplined initiative, and that empowerment comes with it comes with accountability, and like we all I think talked about, you have to be willing to accept a certain amount of risk and underwrite mistakes that are made in the name of learning, but there has to be accountability. And otherwise, just you lose your good discipline, that's required to run any kind of military unit. Good
Absolutely.
discipline.
Yeah, Wayne, I'm with you on that. Accountability is the key. I'm talking about, holding people accountable. And it's just, if you don't hold people accountable, it will create issues in the organization. And that's where you start to stem into that discipline initiative, ensuring that, everyone in the organization is doing the right thing. And that's from the lowest level all the way up to the leader himself, because the leader got to set the right example. And if he's not setting the right example, then we have problems. So, and that's holding people accountable both at the lowest level and at the top level. And that's one thing that I liked about Sergeant Major Vamoto and his, and when he with General Allen, those two definitely set the example, and they disciplined us when, we was out of place. And so those are things that, that helped us along. They kept us accountable. So I agree with you on that.
No, I agree with both of you guys. I think it was I think it was King Arthur, or one of the movies. There's a line that says, "With great power comes great responsibilities." You know, so and that's true with empowerment. Hey, when you're empowered, you got power. You're now in charge of people. You're now in charge of something. So you guys allude to responsibility and accountability. Yeah. So you screw up, you need to be held accountable. So here's a great story. That kind of covers this. My son-in-law was my daughter Sabrina's, former husband there. when he first came to the army, he was up in Fort Drum. Um, this kid had he had a DUI. He was punished for it. He lost his. I think it was E3 or something at the time, or E4. But lost his rank, and then he's trying to work his way back. So almost a year later, about 9 months a year later, his leadership, every time promotion comes around, hey, what about me? My son-in-law, the leader's like, hey, you got in trouble. Remember back, so they kept using the same incident almost a year later, hanging over him. Hey, you messed up, you know. So anyway, I heard about that, not he didn't tell me that, but my daughter told me that. So I looked into it because, me, it doesn't matter if he's my son-in-law, my son, whatever. You don't do that to any of my soldiers. But again, if you're a leader, that's just poor leadership right there. That means that's beyond leadership. That's like personal. They made that personal to that kid. I mean, he's a solid performer, but every time promotion comes around, he's never good enough for promotion. Oh, yeah, remember they keep using the same thing. So of course, I looked into it, talked to his sergeant major about it. I said, hey, I explained the situation. If that soldier's already, this happened a year ago or almost a year, he was punished for it. So now he needs to soldier on, right? This guy's been soldier on, but why are these young leaders continue to hold it over his head when they, Sergeant Major, we need to fix that because that's not right. So I'll let you fix it because I fix it. A platoon sergeant, a first sergeant will not be a first sergeant anymore in the company, right? So he called me a few days later. Sergeant Major is fixed. Okay, explain to me, what does that mean? Well, you're right. They shouldn't have done that. I think they made it personal. So I moved I moved him to a different company so we can have a fresh start. I said, okay, but what about promotion? He's been eligible for the last few months. So anyway, but the bottom line is, yes. So gonna go back to the question, shall we still be empowered, considering that, there was profession or values been violated, or, well, as I'll say, well, yes, is the answer. If as long as they serve the time, they punish for it, and then of course, then let them soldier on from there. With some guidance, some mentorship, let them move forward. But we can't continue to hold it against. I mean, again, it depends on the severity of the problem. Rape, kill, pillage, and burn. Okay, hey man, you gotta go. You gotta go. But something like that, DUI, you can soldier out of that stuff. Like we as leaders, we should not hold that over that soldier, that person, even though he's done his time. He's, so anyway, but that's in my one of my experience there with that in that situation. So I would say that yes, it depends on the situation. But if soldiers done serving their time, then sure, why not give him an opportunity to learn from his mistake and let him again. That's how you earn his trust back by empower him again, give him confidence till he come back. Because once you messed up, it seems like your whole world all of a sudden, people call you a piece of crap, and then you believe that, But when you're empowered, okay, hey, I messed up, but my leaders still do care about me. So I say yes. Sorry.
Are we on to the next question now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So this is the last question here. We often hear when the NCOs are frustrated with their officer counterparts and they make this statement. This is NCO business. So my question to you guys is there such a thing? And as a senior leader, what would your advice be in this situation?
It's a good one.
I gotta say, I mean, there are things that obviously are expected that NCOs take care of on a normal day-to-day basis, but I mean, it's all Army business, and there's nothing that's exclusively NCO business that officers don't need to know about or care about, because they can't. They could delegate authority, but they can't delegate responsibility. So regardless, they're responsible for everything that happens in their unit. So while I don't know how to add to that, I guess it's just you definitely have things that NCOs normally take care of and should take care of, but well, there it is. I guess that's all I can say.
Hey,
Thanks,
I could
Wayne.
chime in on that. I could chime in on that one. So, you're always going to hear them say, hey, this NCO business. There ain't no such thing as NCO business. It's leader business. Got nothing to do with NCO business, because at the end of the day, the officer is responsible for everything that goes on in that organization. I'm talking about he signs for everything. He's responsible for it. So there's no such thing as this is NCO business, because guess what? At the end of the day, NCOs, yes, we are the ones that does the day-to-day operations, handling the business in the organization. However, the commander, it has total responsibility for the entire organization, from training to providing resources. That commander is the man, period. And so it's no such thing as NCO business. Yeah, we do a lot for the organization, but it's all leader business. Got nothing to do with NCO. Because guess what? At the end of the day, all of us have the same intent and mission, is to accomplish whatever our goal is for that organization on that given day. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I can't imagine having been like a company commander and being called on the battalion commander's carpet to explain something that happened in my unit and said, I don't know, sir, that is NCO business. I don't think that would have flown too far. So I agree 100%.
I concur. Terry's got a good point. I think the mentality of NCO business, that's a kind of Vietnam era, mentality, and of course that kind of stem in after Vietnam. Even my young days in the Army has always been NCO business. We didn't know any better, but as we move up the ranks, you kind of learn. As Terry mentioned, it's leader business. Because really, but it goes back to, I think if we peel the onion back, where do we get our authority from as NCOs? From the officers, right? Because according to Uniform Code of Military Justice, the officer is in charge. They are responsible for everything that good or bad in the organization. But through the officer authority, the NCOs are empowered, right? So that's the only authority we have, is that we're empowered to run the day-to-day affair of our Army. But I think that's the thing that it maybe is not taught, or maybe it's not, really in BLC, and but I think it's important for NCO to know where their authority comes from, and and you can easily lose that authority when we abuse it. If that's what I say. These young folks get mouthing off, "Hey, sir, this is NCO business." Well, you pretty soon you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to say that anymore if you keep saying NCO business, but you don't do your stuff. It's leader business today, and I think since global war and terrorism, I think that term of NCO business kind of went out the window and became, we kind of refer to it as leader business, because if it concerns the officer, it concerns the NCO. If it concerns the NCO, it concerns the officer as well. But I think to kind of go back to my point, it's important for NCOs to know where their authority comes from. That's through the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And we are running the day-to-day affair of our Army because we are empowered. I think that's why this topic of empowerment is not so much everything else, but we are empowered as NCOs to run the day-to-day affair of our Army. And that's why our Army is so successful, because we're empowered to run and do things that we know things that are better for our Army, train soldiers and so on. But again, that's not alleviate the responsibility of the officers, for oversight, for training, for mentorship, and so on. Because at the end of the day, as Mr. Wayne Hunt says, he's not no commander is going to stand in front of the big boss and tell, hey sir, that was my fault. That's NCO business. You get your 4-point of contact, get rim, and and might lose command. With Rand, Wayne, thanks for that response, but go pack your bags. You're no longer a commander in this outfit. So yeah. So that would be my response to our NCOs. As Terry alluded to.
Do you think the term this is NCO business is a misapplication based on the NCO feeling like that empowerment is kind of taken away with the officer's presence, like maybe micromanaging certain things?
Well, it could be because, a lot of time they get frustrated because, they feel that the officers is kind of, like you hear a lot of NCOs say, oh, he needs to stay in his lane. Well, all of it is his lane. So, so NCOs have to learn that, hey, bottom line is, hey, you answer to the officer, and it's no such thing as stay in your lane, because all of it is his lane anyway. So you just got to be smart about it and don't sit up there and, get frustrated and say, stay in your lane, or this is NCO business. Yeah. And a lot of times they do get that way because they feel that a lot of officers are fringing on, their responsibility. But the one thing they got to understand is officers check. We all should be checking. And in order for you to be successful, you're going to check and recheck. And so a lot of times they get upset because that officer is just doing what they was taught to. Hey, I'm following up. I'm checking. I understand this is, your lane, but at the end of the day, I have to answer to it as well. So.
Absolutely, Terry. I concur wholeheartedly. But I think it goes, kind of reinforce my point earlier. I think it's, when NCOs think that, I think it's a lack of understanding of what their role is. I mean, their role is everything, but I think it's the authority. I think when our NCOs know that our authorities is derived from that, and again, it's all like I said earlier, if it concerns you, it concerns the platoon leader. It's y'all's platoon. It's not just your platoon, because the notion I hear all the time, well, I've been here the longest, I've been doing this for a long time, that Butterbar just got here, so it's my platoon kind of thing, But again, if he goes back to understanding what the, where his authority comes from, you'll probably have a different response. But I think it's a matter of education. But you're right, but it's leader responsibility, and everybody has to, the responsibility and accountability to the unit, the mission, and to the men and equipment. It's not just the NCOs. And sometimes, yes, the platoon sergeant probably made the squad leader sign for platoon equipment. It's kind of give him accountability thing. But overall, it's that lieutenant, is that platoon leader's responsible for all this stuff. He's just empowering the young squad leader, with the care of those platoon equipment. So, to answer your question, Solly.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from this last question. You guys educated me on this.
No, I think that's before we go into closing. I think for you guys, any alibis, any any question you want to go back and comment?
Hey, I got one for you, Sergeant Major, and it goes back to what you was talking about, SOPs. and it came back to me in reference to you and General Allen. So General Allen, he was, some of the things that he said always has stayed in my mind. And what he said about SOPs, he said something that was very interesting. Now, I use this today working for the state. And it's SOPs. He said, good unit has SOPs, but he said great unit follow SOPs. And so when he, and to that day, I'm talking about some years later, when I left Afghanistan, I used to always go down and I look at SOPs, and going, And then, and I ask questions and I'm like, yeah, you got it, but you're not following it. So, yeah, you're a good unit, but you ain't a great unit. And so I always remember that. And I just want to put that in because we was, Wayne mentioned about SOPs, following those things, but that just came in my mind. And, but it's just facts. I'm talking about great unit following.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly, I heard that from General Allen as well. It's, everybody claim, well, I got SOP, but yeah, we got SOP, but who's actually reading? Is anybody even reading the SOP? So great. Yeah, that's what you mentioned. Every unit has SOP, but great units follow them. I mean, look at our Army has all kinds of, policies, whether it be uniform policy, appearance, or whatever. They're just policies on paper, but with a lack of enforcing and with a lack of people, following it, then it's just a policy, you know. It's just and that's all they are. It's just a bunch of policy without lack of enforcement. So I concur. I mean, and I like what you use in your state job right now. You know, but I tell you, my time in the Ranger Regiment. I mean, when I first got there, I've been around a few units before I went to the regiment. But man, these guys, and when you talk about RSOP, everybody knows the RSOP. If it's ASOP, everybody knows the ASOP. And that's a reference. People don't just when I first got there, all they hear is like, well, according to RSOP, RSOP, Ranger SOP, Ranger SOP. And they don't just talk about it. They knew the RSOP. Even them young privates coming to Army, them team leaders or them E4 Mafia, make sure that those young privates not only read, but they understood what the RSOP was. That's a unit that not only have a SOP, but they follow them to the T. That's why they're a great organization. Now if every unit in the Army can do that, man, we'll make the whole Army, every unit in the Army is just as great. Okay. I think Saleh, I think it's a wrap up.
We good? So before I read out this outro, I just want you gentlemen to understand that Isaiah wrote this, although I am going to read it, but he wrote it. So to give credit to him. So thank you, viewers, for taking time to join us. We also appreciate you guys for your willingness to share your experiences again. It's very, very, very grateful. And as mentioned, this is not easy for leaders. Giving up control involves an element of risk. Empowering a lieutenant with the freedom of movement at a remote outpost is difficult, yet necessary. Empowering an NCO with planning and execution in dangerous resupply convoy is difficult, yet necessary. Empowering a captain to lead a discussion with village elders is difficult, yet necessary. Empowering a corporal to find the needle in a haystack via some complex cyber information technology operation is difficult, yet necessary. And leaders who empower others are able to skillfully manage this tension between difficult and necessary. Leaders at the organizational level, both commissioned and non-commissioned officers, must educate subordinates that NCO empowerment is a delegation of command authority and supported by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is not an inherent right gained by a mission or responsibility. Without an appreciation and understanding of where this empowerment comes from, we, the NCOs, are in jeopardy of being disempowered. Well, until next time, thank you, good night, and God bless.
All right.